Good evening. This is Maestro Bertello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 2v2 on Medean Cliff Mines, and our first player today is Adila, playing as the Farseer. The Farseer is an Eldar support commander. She's a decent melee fighter, but she's really more about her spells. Starts out with Guide for giving a damage buff to just a targeted Eldar squad, or I think even vehicle. She can get a number of things for buffing and debuffing, and she also has some for control, disabling, manipulation, etc. Next up, we've got Jamona. I'm not terribly familiar with this player, and he, I think, ran off his Commissar a little unnecessarily right there, or retreated him, rather. He is nevertheless playing as the Commissar Lord. The Commissar Lord is a slightly tanky melee hero. Starts out with a free energy shield, just giving him an extra 250 hit points. He is slightly tanky, not as tanky as other melee heroes, and he can execute his own troops, gives them a 100% damage buff, but does not allow them to retreat. Next up, we've got Lucidic, playing as yet another Eldar Farseer. This one has a little bit of yin and yang on her back. She's also knocking over the other Farseer, as well as a bunch of Banshees and some Dire Avengers with her special attack. And then finally, we've got Floid, a dedicated Tyranid player. He kind of plays every Tyranid commander, but he pretty much just plays Tyranids. Here he's playing as the Ravener Alpha, a tunneling commander. Has the ability to make tunnels which act like webway gates. You can just instantly go inside one tunnel and then come up out of another one. Very good for mobility. And he can fight a bit both in ranged and in melee. Starts out more as a ranged commander, but depending on how you upgrade him, you can emphasize his melee prowess as well. Red team looks like they took an early advantage, but now Jamona has pushed back in the middle after retreating out his Commissar alone. Although he may have also sent in his Commissar alone. Yeah, we definitely need some repairs on the Sentinel right here. Sentinel has the decap, and now I think it should try to intercept these Hormagaunts over here. Does the Sentinel? Yes, it has its ground pound, so it should absolutely go try to stop those Hormagaunts before they end up destroying this node. I think that would be very nice, especially bring the Guardsmen over there to support. But it looks like, wow, I'm actually surprised that Floyd retreated out of there that early. He does prevent himself from bleeding any models, but I feel like he also could have finished off the power node. Unless Jamona had actually used that stomp to disrupt them, which I guess is maybe what Floyd was thinking. So either way, that ended up being an engagement where neither player really lost or gained anything. Anyway, Banshee's right here. Now, a Banshee on Banshee fight is tricky and can often be a little bit random, but if anything, I feel like you want to avoid it because it's pretty random, and this might actually result in Lucidic losing his Banshee. I think he's going to be lucky to get them out of there this time. But the Banshee on Banshee fight, nice feint. So Adila approached with those Banshees, approached the Dire Avengers. He actually baited them into throwing out their grenade defensively, and then he actually stepped back. And then that ended up being just a waste of grenade, and now the Dire Avengers really have no defense against the Banshees, and then once that happens, they pretty much just need to get out of there. Meanwhile, that node actually ended up being taken out, so maybe Floyd did gain something from that, since he came back over and he was able to finish off the power node. I'm guessing Jamona didn't repair it, so it was probably pretty easy to just take it out, and then he even got the decap. So red team, or blue team rather, has definitely had a very disrupted power income, I think. Although the power income for the red team has been disrupted a little bit too, but I think not quite as much. They've got a full power, no, not a full power farm. They've only got 2 generators over here, and now it's being bashed. Meanwhile, on the sides of the Eldar, Eldar mirrors are extremely volatile, just because of how easily squads can get wiped. Models certainly die like nothing. And then, I mean, squads can also get wiped very, very easily. A lot of that has to do with the Banshees. Rangers are also pretty devastating in an Eldar mirror. So both of these players are, in a way, like almost somewhat lucky that they've still got their squads alive. Meanwhile, over here, we've got some warriors out for Floyd. No upgrade yet. He's also getting some Raveners, so he's going for a rather big Tier 1. And the Ravener choice, I almost feel a little bit surprised. We do have some Catachans out for Jamona. He's just got a lot that he can use to counter melee. Maybe he will just be immediately upgrading the Raveners to be Devourer Raveners so that they can act as a very powerful ranged unit as well, instead of just using them for their jumping capabilities, or really their burrowing capabilities. So here are those Where are those Raveners, actually? They must have immediately gone into the tunnel, and in fact they did. Now they're out of the tunnel. back over here. I hear the screams of the Banshees. They might still be able... No, they actually probably won't take out that Farseer. We've got some upgrades on Farseers, and man, they were actually really committing to these Banshee on Banshee fights. And again, this is such a terrible situation just because it's so risky. Like, whoever gets the knockdown first could end up wiping the squad. I think this is Adila right here. I think he's got to go. He's got to get his Rangers out of there. They're already... Like, the Banshees are already there. Only 3 models left, but I mean, Banshees are just so scary. And especially against other Eldar squads, and oh man, that was really scary right there with those Rangers just derping around, whatever. Two Ranger models go down very, very quickly right there, so it's really just scary stuff in Eldar Mir. You know, it looks like a lot of stuff. Wow, so many things happened over here that I missed. Jamona, it looks like, wow, his Sentinel went down to 1 hit point. He lost a squad of Guardsmen entirely. My God. And now it is Adila who's losing the power farms. And since Eldar is a high DPS race overall, if they win engagement, they're probably going to be able to bash pretty quickly with just whatever units they have. The combination of just double Dire Avengers as well as Banshees is definitely going to be pretty good. So some grenades go in again, but Adila has not been buying the bait. I mean, he does end up taking damage from that because he has to back up while the Dire Avengers are still firing. But again, once the Dire Avengers throw their grenade, they're pretty much defenseless against Banshees by themselves. They would need something else. Farseer got really angry at the barrel and destroyed that barrel right there. More likely just a misclick. Sometimes you try to go put your units in cover or just move in someplace, and you end up attacking the barrels. I don't even really know why that's in the game, but it ends up being ridiculous. And then you get some really ridiculous Space Marine lines like, attacking barrel! Anyway, our Farseer right here. Sometimes I feel like the glow on her sword makes me think that she has the gravity blade from afar, but she doesn't. She's still got her default sword, Armor of Fortune, and the Ghost Helm. Ghost Helm actually a pretty good choice, I think, in that Eldar Mir, since that's something that would be... Well, actually, I don't know if it's that good for dealing with the Banshees, but certainly good for dealing with the other Farseer. At first I was thinking good for dealing with the Banshees, but it would only target 1 model. Armor of Fortune actually would be good for a Banshee on Banshee fight, since it would give your Banshees a health, a damage resistance. Although, ooh, very nice grenade, and that time, and that was Lucidic, honestly just not even reacting. Let's look at Lucidic as Farseer. He's only got the Armor of Fortune, so they both went the Armor of Fortune to reduce the damage they took, probably to gain an edge in the Banshee on Banshee fights. But, I mean, the Banshee on Banshee fights, I think it usually ends up being decided by who gets the special attack, and that's usually not really something you can control. That is, to be honest, something that's pretty random. And although it's random, I mean, usually the randomness, I feel, is not that big of a deal in most fights. Just because usually most unit melee fights are pretty predictable in my opinion. Either in a direct unit-on-unit matchup, it's pretty clear which unit will win if they're both going in with full health, and then if they're not going in with full health, it's usually predictable based on whichever squad has more health and more models. But if you got the same exact unit, 2 squads of Howling Banshees, it's going to depend on who's going to get that special attack, and that's actually really random. So that's actually a part that's really random. I would personally try to avoid a Banshee on Banshee fight unless I feel like I have some kind of favorable thing going for me. Normally a health advantage, especially if we have an absolutely direct mirror of Banshees of a Farseer on a Farseer. As opposed to if you were playing the Warp Spider, the Farseer against the Warp Spider Exarch, then the Farseer would probably have the advantage in the Banshee on Banshee fights, courtesy of her War Gears, since the Warp Spider Exarch does not really have things that she can use to support Banshees the way that the Farseer does. Although the Rangers are a pretty good choice, I think, for saving yourself in certain situations, because of course, like if you have a Banshee on Banshee fight, whichever one retreats first is going to be an enormous amount of trouble against the other Banshee squad that's chasing. So the Rangers with that kinetic pulse, it's going to be a nice get out of jail free card, just knock over the Banshee squads, and I mean just a way of controlling the Banshees. And I always say, like, you really got to respect Banshees. Now we're even talking, like, across matchups. It really doesn't even matter what matchup. You need to really respect and control Banshees. Do something about them. And the Rangers are an answer with their Kinetic Pulse. And even just one use of Kinetic Pulse can make the difference between keeping a squad alive and losing it against Banshees. They just are that powerful. Now we've got Warp Fighters out from Lucidic. A lot of the players have gone for pretty short builds. Jamona, meanwhile, man, he really lost stuff. I've missed him losing stuff while watching the Eldar on Eldar Mirror and ranting about Eldar things. Jamona's got nothing. He lost Catachans. He did lose that one squad of Guardsmen. He's got a Chimera, but I mean, look at all the stuff that Floyd's got. He's now got a Zoanthrope out on the field. If he does a focused Warp Blast, this Chimera could be in a little bit of trouble. Although we don't really have that much follow-up. It's taken some damage. Maybe Focused Warp Blast was already used. And then, I mean, the only damage that's really going to be done to that is the very, very light damage coming from the Raveners and the Warriors in melee. But right now, the Warriors are upgrading to their Adrenal Gland, so they will have heavy melee instead of power melee. And then the Raveners only do regular melee. So, again, their damage is very, very light. But I totally missed it, and there's actually apparently a Venom Brood. I missed it because it's not in the unit panel because Floyd is overflowing with units. He's got 7 squads, apparently. Well, although the Zoanthrope is not exactly a squad, but he's got 7 units in addition to his commander. I don't know why I got into that habit of not counting the commander in unit count. Maybe I should, but it feels hard to change it. Anyway, this is undoubtedly going to be a full power bash over here. I don't see how Jamona can stop it just with all the things that Floyd has. Jamona needs some more things himself, and he's going straight to Tier 3, which, I mean, this is a long game ahead of us, so it's not going to cost him the game immediately, at least not yet. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but he's definitely going to be giving up the power farm because of the fact that he chose to not really buy much in Tier 2 and go straight to Tier 3, which is, it's always a bit of a gamble rushing to Tier 3. Definitely much more of a gamble than rushing. I actually feel like compared to rushing Tier 2, rushing Tier 3 is a bigger risk with lower payoff. A bigger risk with lower payoff. Meanwhile, the Eldar Mirror seems like it's pretty even in this lane, and the VPs are staying pretty even. I mean, Jamona, well, I mean, let's be clear, he hasn't been winning for a while now. He's not getting devastated too hard, but I mean, he lost squads, and I mean, he went to Tier 3 to buy Stormtroopers. So that's a little disappointing. If anyone does have the edge here, I would say Lucidic has had the edge. It feels like he's more frequently pushing forward into Adila's power farm and then bashing power. Well, nice try with the attempted infiltration on this whole Eldar army, but then I guess that must have been the Farsight global by the Farseer. The Farseer has a global called Farsight. It will reveal Fog of War as well as detect in an area. And actually now Floyd going for the double. And now we're going to have pretty much like power completely bashed for the blue team. So they're not in a very strong position. Adila has generally managed to kind of hold, but I'd say it's more Jamona's kind of responsibility that like they're kind of now on the back foot of things. I don't want to play the blame game too much, but just trying to explain what I think is going on. The game's still going. Blue team could still definitely pull this out. I mean, it's not like they're out of the game at all, especially Jamona's already made it to Tier 3. So although power's been bashed, the power bash has actually come a little bit late, actually. Adila is still in Tier 2, and that might actually be a little bit of a problem for him, though. So he may just have to tough it out in Tier 2. Hopefully for them, they can draw out the game pretty long, so that can allow Adila to recover economically. But he at least still has a sizable amount of squads out on the field, and I feel like he's got enough functionality in his composition to deal with just about anything. He's got some very powerful melee. He's got enough range, certainly. Well, actually, the Wraithguard are definitely pretty powerful in range. He's got AV, he's got anti-infantry. So his composition is sufficient for now, while he tries to stockpile some resources. I think his main concern, he's only got plus 204 requisition income. He wants to try to not bleed too many models so that he doesn't stay stuck in Tier 2 forever. think. Anyway, Ranger's actually running around with only 2 models, and I mean, that's just another consideration. Good players will often do this. It's something I don't do personally very much, even though I understand the reasons for doing it. But good players will often not reinforce models on squads, and they'll especially do it on squads that don't actually gain much additional functionality out of having those extra models. So we're talking about setup teams, snipers, plague marines, units where their primary functionality comes out of the lead model, and that's in the case of the Rangers. That's in the long rifle on the whatever the lead model is. It's a little bit risky because it does mean the squad is less durable. You need to be more on top of your micro to make sure you don't lose the squad entirely. But if you can manage it, you're saving both the cost of reinforcing that squad as well as having less upkeep. So it's something done by higher level players, and not very commonly done by lower level players or even mid-level players. But there are definitely some very good reasons for doing it. We did have an attempted gravity blade by Adila's Farseer, but she ends up going down right here, which unfortunately I think is a loss he would rather not deal with at this point in the game, but hopefully jamona at some point can revive that Farseer for him. Lucidic, meanwhile, man, completely missing things, but he actually lost his warp spiders, which is actually a pretty big blow for him. I don't know how he lost his warp spiders, especially considering how much warp spiders could do in pretty much any matchup, and to be honest, probably very strong in the Eldar mirror because of the way they can just teleport away from banshees and do a huge amount of damage to them and scare them off, lead them. One Termagant Brood down to 1 out of 8 models, really needs to get out of there. This one down to 3 out of 8 models, but staying out on the field. And yeah, I mean, I feel these Termagants are staying in a little unnecessarily. Not going to be doing a whole lot of damage with only like 1 or 3 models. Farseer or Autarch potentially in trouble, but these Howling Banshees need to run around that barbed wire, whereas the Autarch is just jumping over it. Meanwhile, what do we have going on over here? A melee fight between Dire Avengers, and this Dire Avenger squad only down to the Exarch, trying to go for it, but still just not doing enough damage. And now these Dire Avengers in a little bit of trouble. We see Guide going up on the Howling Banshees. I think a sync kill may have made it a little bit harder, and now it's Adila's Dire Avenger Exarch getting out of their lives. So that Dire Avenger Exarch definitely improves the durability of the squad a lot. Oh man, these Wraithguard need to go. I think we'll probably see at least one more model on the Wraithguard go down. Actually, maybe not. They're pretty tanky. And now we have an interception by Adila's Howling Banshees. And now they have a significant health advantage, but they have been suppressed. That might be by the Mind War. Or no, wow, I don't even know what they were suppressed by. Either way. Those Banshee on Banshee fights, again, very volatile. Jamona now running around. He's got his Chimera. What does he have inside the Chimera? Just the single squad of Guardsmen. Only 1 squad of Guardsmen inside that Chimera. Meanwhile, Jamona, he's got some presence in the middle. We've even got some tunneling Ravener Alphas. That is from the Enhanced Muscle Coil upgrade. You know, it increases their speed by 1, which is really good. I mean, this is such a rarely used upgrade, but in the few times that I have seen it, it's really been great. I mean, especially right now, Jamona does not have any kind of detector. And I mean, if your opponent doesn't even have a detector, you can even just keep them under. And the thing is, they don't drain energy, so they can apparently do this infinitely. And not only can you surprise them in the middle of engagement, but you just get a lot of intel because you can just see what your opponent is doing, and they don't know about it. And again, you can just keep these Raveners here forever. And I think you also can't bump into the Raveners the way you could bump into an infiltrated squad. So it's actually amazing how good this seems, although I'm saying this from a position of I don't play Tyranids very much at all, and I don't like Tyranids. But nevertheless, it seems so good, and yet it's really rarely used because you really rarely see it. And they come up right there. They actually stun when they come up, which is fantastic. And now Red Team taking this engagement very, very handily. I mean, they've been winning for a while. This Chimera in so much trouble. It's not going to make it out of there alive. No way. 46 hit points. It's going to be really, really lucky if it does, and it somehow does. All right, another Gravity Blade by the Farseer. She's actually managing to lift up a lot of these things in the air. Not bad as a melee counter. I think this... Oh, The Wraith Guard now in a little bit of trouble. Hormagon's chasing. Will they be able to finish off that Wraith Guard? And they do finish off the Wraith Guard. Quite a blow for Adila. He might also lose his Farseer. Wouldn't be as big of a blow, but it actually looks like Floyd just totally ignored her. I feel like just by attacking with all of the stuff that he had there, he should have been able to take that out. Meanwhile, these Raveners, oh, is that a rocket run? It is, in fact, a rocket run. One of the most very powerful nuke global. And it actually didn't look like it wiped any squads. Maybe it wiped one squad, but Adila now not looking very strong. He lost his Autarch. He lost the Autarch. He lost the Wraith Guard. He's now in tier 3 though, so he's actually has decent resources. He's got 500 red, so he could do an Eldritch Storm. Meanwhile, I think he's dropping his micro a little bit, getting these Rangers tied up by the Farseer, a fight that they cannot hope to win. Ooh, and that special attack is very deadly. One Ranger model has to go down. Actually doesn't. I think pretty lucky there for Adila. And will the Farseer now go down for Lucidic? And it actually doesn't.
We have shattered the building.
Oh, that Banshee. Oh my god. Anyway. Termagant's capturing the side VP. Looks like the blue team had a double for a little bit. And here we go with a Wailing Doom. Looks like it's mostly going to miss. Maybe hit a few guardsmen on the periphery. This now means the Howling Banshees are going to go in and chase. I don't think the Avatar yet has enough energy to do the Wrath of Cain. Probably pretty soon, actually. Now he does. 50 energy to use that ability. And I think it will knock over some Banshees, even in retreat. And in fact, it does. Just a good defensive ability. You don't see it as often as Wailing Doom, but because it's mostly a defensive ability, whereas Wailing Doom is your damage dealer. That's your money maker. And I hear something. I hear that the Farseer for Adila has gotten the armor of the Assyrian. Very, very powerful. This is a tier 3 war gear. There aren't that many tier 3 war gears, and tier 3 war gears usually come with some kind of very powerful ability. So in this case, we've got Time Field, which just creates a big area where units are slowed, can't use abilities. It makes them very, very vulnerable, and it can often be an engagement winner ability. Swarm Lord out for Floyd. Don't think I acknowledged this, but a very, very powerful Tyranid super unit. I think it's a lot more powerful. I mean, the Hormagons are reinforcing off the Swarm Lord. You get on-the-field reinforcement from this thing. And it's such a good fighting unit as well. I think it only does 85 DPS heavy melee, which is, in a way, almost surprising considering things like Blood Crushers do more. But that's also considering all the other benefits you have from the Swarm Lord. Reinforcing out on the field. It's fast. I think it may have some kind of auras or area of effect buffs. Probably one of the biggest things about the Swarm, well, not one of the biggest things, but it also has that Life Leech ability, so it can support itself by draining health in the middle of engagement. Here is the Eldritch Storm on top of the Leman Russ. Not enough of a reaction out of Jamona. He might lose this Leman Russ out of it. The Leman Russ has not been destroyed entirely. There's another Eldritch. And that's actually going to take out the Fire Prism. So Leman Russ goes down, Fire Prism goes down. So back-to-back Eldritches, and both of them made something happen. Meanwhile, Tyranids, oh man, Floyd suddenly has almost nothing, and he's not retreating, not reacting, getting his things out of there soon enough. Might even lose his Swarm Lord. Yeah, I think, whoa, here's another nuke, but there goes the Swarm Lord. It goes down. The Leman Russ now in a lot of trouble. It needs to back out. It's got plenty of hit points, but it needs to go. Ooh, it's kind of path blocked by its friendly Chimera. 26 hit points. That should be the it for this Leman Russ. The it? Did I really say that? That should be the it. Anyway, 2 VPs captured. A 2-0 game in favor of the blue team. Well, they've got the captured VPs, although the number of VPs is in favor of the red team. And we've got players going for the points. Floyd capturing his natural VP. We had a decap by Lucidic on the blue team natural VP. And now we've got an Avatar in here fighting toe-to-toe with a Farseer. Very bold for that Farseer, but she is not in any way, shape, or form going to win that engagement. D cannon shot goes in, hits these infiltrated rangers. I don't know if he even knew that those were there. But here we go with the Banshees. Oh, Lucidic, I'm apparently missed a lot of other things, but Lucidic lost his Banshees. I don't remember that happening. We had a Wrath of Cain, but that's again a time where Adila did not go into it. A lot of times where Lucidic is reacting defensively against the Banshees, Adila is not sending his units into those traps, which it still has an effect on him. He doesn't get hit, he doesn't take damage, but he still has to deal with the fact that it does force him to back off. He does get pressured into backing off. Now, I think the Wrath of Cain is still on cooldown. Wailing Doom is not, but Wailing Doom is not as good defensively, and certainly with a unit like Banshees, which are fast, and a good player like Adila, if he did try to use Wailing Doom defensively against Banshees, Adila would probably just run them out of there. Probably just like quickly fleet of foot behind him. I mean, even here we have, that was not a very good Wailing Doom. There go grenades. That time he actually does run into the grenades. These Dire Avengers, though, they do not want to stay in here. The Banshees are in, but I think a sync kill may have actually saved them a little bit. Anyway, this Fire Prism just standing around here, it's actually really not standing, it's hovering. It looks like it took a D-cannon hit, but as long as it disrupts the D-cannon, it's going to win out against the D-cannon.
Our guardians have given their lives for our cause. We are losing a victory objective. Close combat! Our Farseer has attained level 8. The forces of gravity will bow to our Farseer blade.
Uh-oh, we got a Lictor Alpha, not a Lictor Alpha, just a Lictor chasing after the Fire Prism and not quick enough reactions. Or, I don't know, even if he did react quicker, the Lictor is chasing and he is very tough. He's got 1,250 hit points. I actually think he should keep going. I think he would stand a decent chance to take out that second Fire Prism. But I mean, he just snuck up right there and finished off the Fire Prism. Very nice use of the Tier 3 Lictor. Really a good unit, even though it's so often overshadowed by the Swarm Lord and the Carnifex. This is... Whoa! That was not quite what I was expecting. That was actually quite hilarious. That was... Lucidic naded his own D-cannon because Adila ran through them with the Banshees. And I was wondering why Adila had just run past, but I guess he must have anticipated the grenades. So that was hilarious. Lucidic ended up nading his own D-cannon. His D-cannon didn't die, but it was still funny.
It is a fuselage.
The shots came from that direction.
Anyway, we've got, well, some attempted infiltration, but this might be some more of that Farsight from, I guess, Adila, because those units, they were infiltrated and then they were very quickly detected with no actual detectors around. Anyway, double Lehman Russ is only one Lehman Russ, and this Chimera is dead. Why doesn't he go after it? Man, I don't know why he didn't do that. I feel like he could have finished it, like even just potentially taxing Jamona's micro. Like there might have been a time where Jamona just like for a second like didn't move it. Here's another rocket run. Takes out some models, takes out the Ravener Alpha. I wonder if I think it may have even took out a squad. Oh, that's probably going to be it for these Seer Council. They get pulled into the Singularity, and then we have some Banshee follow-up, and I think it was actually the Lehman Russ that got the final shot and took out those Seer Council. Anyway, blue team still behind in the real VPs. They've got 97 to 138, but they are about to get the double cap. I feel like they just had a few victories in terms of just some things they destroyed, but the army counts and sizes still look relatively even. We've got, well, 3 units each for Floid and Jamona, and then their winners, 4 and 5 respectively for Adila and Lucidic. Anyway, this D cannon often taking shots from the fire prism.
We trust in your guidance.
Yes. The shots came from that
And the Banshees just go in. That's really bad for the D cannon. That could be the wipe on the D cannon. It is the wipe on the D cannon before I could even finish my sentence. And I mean, of course, one of the great things about Banshees, if you keep them alive, they scale very well into tier 3, into the late game, at level 4. I mean, even just right now, we should see some attempted follow-up on the Warp Spiders, possibly even going to take out the Warp Spiders. Very, very close call. Even going to try to go for range fire, but they can't do it. Still took out 2 models. That was a really close call, and Lucidic apparently lost something else. Oh my god. This is terrible. That's got to be it for this fire prism. Taking hits from these fire dragons, except, oh, maybe not. Scared him off, I think, with the threat of a singularity, which probably would have wiped the fire dragon, even if they took out the fire prisms. So fire dragons from Lucidic, and oh god, again retreating through Banshees. Adila just seems to be keeping his Howling Banshees in a position where they can just intercept a retreat path. Meanwhile, over here, we have got a Farseer who is undoubtedly going down from Tyranids that came out of the Webway Gate. And here's an Eldritch Storm practically just to stop the cap. Really does not do much in terms of actually killing things, and really mostly just scares things off. And then after all the Tyranids come out of the Webway Gate, we have some more Eldar coming out of the Webway Gate. We've now got a double Fire Prism build from Adila. He's suddenly got a whole bunch of units when he was like the furthest behind in tech at one point. Oh, that's really bad. Haywire goes in. We're gonna see infiltrated fire dragons come out, and now they're just gonna go after that fire prism, but they might get disrupted by one of the fire prisms. I think this one's gonna go down. Another fire prism down. The Warp Spiders teleporting in to be aggressive to shred the infantry, so that's the second fire prism down in this game. Fire prisms, they're really definitely one of the glass cannon units in this game, and there are certainly a lot of them, but fire prisms, they can do so much, they can be so game-winning, and at the same time they are so easy to lose.
We are losing a victory objective. An ally has gained control of a victory point.
The reinforcements are most welcome.
No need for haste. The time is speed.
They lose fire upon us, but not beyond.
You shall have it.
They're attacking from range.
Wow, the red team actually really putting the pressure on the blue team's natural VP. Grenade goes in, that's going to force her off, and she uses the gravity blade, which, I mean, just kind of suspends the Gene Stealers in the air and then tosses them aside. But it's not going to be able to deal with all of this. Meanwhile, Jamona's now coming over. I feel like Jamona could maybe try to go over here, capture the contested VP. You know, another grenade. It's all happening right here. The Chimera getting in trouble, threatened by those fire dragons. Fire dragons, I don't know. They don't seem that good, and definitely I think people have complained about fire dragons being not that good. They did manage to take out that. They took out the Lehman Russ. No, wait, that was the Chimera. The Lehman Russ is right here. And a lot of things getting very, very close to dying. But I mean, fire dragons, they need to get so close, and they don't really seem to actually even be dealing that much of a punch. Even they're coming out of infiltration. Lucidic trying to make them work, but I don't know. Like, I wonder if he would just be better off with a Bright Lance, which I think would even be cheaper. But there is definitely something to be said about a mobile AV squad versus one that needs to set up and be immobile to do its damage.
Just as you require.
Blue team now actually pretty low on VPs, only down to 44. It's actually a no-cap game, so now the VPs have totally stopped, and now they've got a 1-0. Rangers need to get out of there before they get absolutely rolled. Only one Ranger there, in fact, just a Ranger, not Rangers. And it's actually going to be pretty difficult, I think, for the Dire Avengers to capture this point. They're going to start taking hits from the Lehman Rust. This is an Executioner Lehman Rust doing quite a bit of damage, even getting knocked over by things. But we had a Spirit Stone's Heal to try to give them some more staying power, and the Farseer directly takes over the cap, which is a nice move. You can have one unit take over the cap of another, and then you actually don't have to, like, recap, because you just pick up where the other unit left off. And that can actually be something that's pretty powerful. A Tyranna formation goes off over here. What is it even doing, though? We've got the Executioner Lehman Rust now in a huge amount of trouble. Undoubtedly going to go down. And again, before I can finish my sentence, it does. Singularity really kills these Dire Avengers. They've actually still got 4 models left with 100 hit points. I feel like only the Dire Avenger Exarch should have been alive there. That must have been another Emperor's Wrath called down by the Commissar Lord, who is fully upgraded. He's now got a late-game Catachan Devil Squad, which is so curious. I wonder if he got that specifically to deal with, like, tunneling Ravners. Which, I mean, at this point, those are dead anyway. Ooh. So the Seer Council are in here. Definitely going to be... They could have potentially wiped out that D-Cannon if the Rangers hadn't used their Kinetic Pulse. Rangers level 4, meanwhile, I feel like you don't see that very often. Rangers, I mean, they're a good unit as well, but something about them, I think they usually don't survive into the late game. And even if they do, I feel like they don't necessarily get to level 4. I feel like they start to lose their effectiveness a little bit as the game drags on. An Autarch call in. Meanwhile, on top of all this stuff, I still think that's potentially risky against the Seer Council, even 3 Seer Council members. I feel like the Seer Council are not the ones that should be capping. They're the ones who should be fighting because they're the best fighters, pretty much. I feel like they would, like, just absolutely roll the Autarch. The Autarch, if anything, I think is lucky to get out of there alive. And, I mean, to be honest, may still not. It looks like she will, though. Pretty close call, though.
Eminently, we shall rise to the challenge.
The enemy seeks to silence our guns.
Grenade goes in. That's actually a pretty risky grenade. 2 models go down. I was wondering if that was going to wipe the whole squad, but this is a D-Cannon. It is a bit tougher than a Guardian weapon team. Anyway, oh my god, blue team running out of time now. They're going to get the decap here. It might even cost the Ranger's life because that Farseer, well, she gets scared away by the Banshees. And now he's actually going to leave the Ranger on the point while the Rangers chase. Going to take out the webway. I think that's pretty... Oh! But they can't attack now because of a time field right on top of them. And now this is... Let's see. Lucidic could have some things come out of here. He could have, like, some Seer Council come out of here. And that's really, really terrible for Adila. He just might lose his Banshees in this engagement. Yeah, he's going to push it because there's not much time left. But I don't... He retreats them, but they might not get out of there alive. Kinetic Pulse from the Rangers buys him some time and also the lives of the Howling Banshees. But can they stay in this game? Looks like over here the Ravener Alpha went down. Jamona managing to hold managing to hold the red team's natural, but it doesn't look like he has, or either team really has, the contested. Meanwhile, we've got some Fire Dragons. They seem to be split up a little bit in bad places. And the Autarch for Adila is actually just going for the point. So we have a counter Autarch call in by Lucidic right on top of this Autarch. But Adila's Autarch is still capping, but it's in a lot of trouble. Might even go down. Oh, that's not good. All right, jumps out of there and retreats before it can go down. But that means that now Lucidic is getting the capture point. It's now a 1-to-1. If they can't stop this middle VP, that's probably it in favor of the red team. And it looks like that's just about going to happen. 2-to-1 cap. Not much time left. Rangers and Banshees going over here, but I don't think they can do anything with a bunch of Seer Council standing in their way. So that's probably going to be it in favor of Lucidic and Floid, especially not with some Doom on those guys. So that's definitely it. Jamona calls the GG. And then we have that finish game at 0-37 in favor of the red team. Quite a game, 40 minutes long. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.